Several cars come and go and we all forget about their names, and others actually hang around for several decades. One such notable has to be the Toyota Camry. Hey, and welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Robertson. Now this week we kind of take a sneak peek at the hybrid edition and do a little comparison from where this vehicle has come. So with this vehicle being out for decades, I kind of took a flashback to the year 2000 to see kind of what 15 years did to this vehicle. Now by the numbers back then, it measured in around about 188 inches with the wheelbase around about 105. Now over the years, it's grown just a little bit now for 2015, measuring only about 2 inches longer with the wheelbase about 5 inches longer as well. So it's a proven fact that the Camry has been one of the best-selling midsize sedans over the last decade, and over that time you'd expect this vehicle to maybe kind of morph over the years, have an early midlife crisis, maybe even try to have a youthful-like approach. But one thing that Camry has held on to is that stereotypical design, something we've seen literally about unchanged. Now when I first got the Camry again here for 2015, maybe I expect a little bit more chisel, maybe a little bit more pizzazz, and the only thing that really stuck out at me on this particular model had to be the exterior color. To say the Camry hasn't gone under the knife over the last decade is kind of far from the truth. While the profile is still somewhat the same, the other kind of elements, of course, have been redesigned. Most notable in this model, the front end. Now, I call it grille warfare, and really what I noticed off the bat is that black insert. Now, while a lot of vehicles go into a massive chrome front end, this one goes with that stylized, nice black insert. And again, the new wraparound headlights that a lot of manufacturers are going with. When you look down the side of the Camry, again, this is where that silhouette we've known for years mirrors itself over the last decade, and really it all kind of fashions down the side. A lot of vehicles we just test drove recently are going to chiseled effects, a lot of sharp lines. Here on the Camry, a little bit more soft, a little bit more sleek. And the reason for that is because of the consumer base that looks for the Camry. It doesn't want to really necessarily stand out in the crowd. It doesn't want to look futuristic. It kind of wants to blend in and still have a basic premium exterior. With the evolution of time comes more technology and smart systems like the key. Now, we've talked about this 1,000 times, and a lot of vehicles are going to it. Forget about the old traditional key, but more or less walk up to the vehicle and it knows you're there. Now, a lot of vehicles are putting a button there, you press, you pull the handle, whatever, but what they do here on the Camry, simply slide your hand in, the vehicle knows you're there, pull it open, and slide right in. This is the hybrid model after all, so one thing you expect is innovation under the hood, so let's take a look. Toyota remains one of the world's leaders in hybrid vehicles with 7 hybrid choices for 2015. On the Camry, it comes equipped with the hybrid Synergy Drive powertrain, giving an EPA estimated 43 miles per gallon in the city and 39 miles per gallon on the highway. Through its unique transaxle, hybrid Synergy Drive combines output from a 2.5-liter Atkinson cycle 4-cylinder engine and a small high-torque electric motor. The system produces a combined 200 horsepower and varies power between the gas engine and electric motor, or combines both as needed. A 7.6 second 0 to 60 acceleration time places the Camry Hybrid's performance between the 4-cylinder and V6 models. Regenerative braking converts the electric motor to a generator that captures the kinetic energy when the brake is applied, storing it in the hybrid battery pack. Hill start assist controls help prevent the vehicle from rolling backward when starting off an incline when the brake pedal is released. As we sweep around to the back of the Camry, one thing to talk about is really the body color all the way around this vehicle with just a minimal accents of chrome. Now what you're going to notice here on the rear deck lid is this built-in spoiler, kind of getting this hybrid model a little less geekish and a little bit more sport. Now looking at the cargo area, again over the last decade, this vehicle has grown just a little bit, so maybe it should translate maybe into the trunk space. Now the proximity key entry is going to work in here just the same. The handle is positioned not here in the center, but actually here on the right. You press it one time, and what I like is the fact that the trunk lid really swings out of the way, leaving this nice cavernous opening typical across the midsize sedan market. Now once you look at the cargo area, you're looking at around about 13.1 cubic feet of space. Now funny enough, in comparison to the 2000 model, that one actually exceeded it by about a cubic foot. For any hybrid, one thing that is crucial is battery power, and really keeping that battery nice and cool is key factor. And where you're going to help with that is keeping the battery in the back of the trunk, really tucked underneath this nice covering back here if you need it. Now, one thing you need to talk about is really what's under the cargo floor, and really there's no added storage, but basically an area where you keep your jack and some other tools should you need it. Now, way down here after you pull this up is going to be the spare tire, another added benefit on this vehicle. One thing this vehicle I noticed didn't have was sensors. Now, a lot of vehicles are coming with the front park sensors and the backup sensors just the same, but we didn't have it here. Instead, really just the backup camera is going to be mounted right here in the center. Climbing into the back seat of the Camry is really where I start, because back here was surprising comfort. Now, by the legroom numbers, you're looking at about 38.9 inches, and that is well above par for this segment, because that gives you a lot of breathing room. And what you're going to notice with my 6-foot frame, there's plenty of space between the seat backs and my knees. Now, overall comfort back here is fairly decent. While I found a lot of sedans to kind of have a hard, rigid back seat, this one's got fairly decent comfort, with maybe the center occupant being a little bit more rigid. Now, last but not least, has to be the elbow support. And what I found was maybe this is a little bit low. A lot of vehicles are bringing it up just a little bit, allowing you really your elbow to kind of rest up here. In this case, you're kind of dropping it just a hair, but it still had decent cup holders in between. If you're used to the good old Camry, really this may be the biggest difference with this hybrid, because it's not traditional. Now, what you're going to find difference with the proximity key entry is there is no traditional key, but more or less a start-stop button. Now, once you press that, initially you're not going to hear that rumble, but more or less a nice hum, as this kind of mimics a golf cart. Now, once you hit the gas and demand more power, of course that gasoline engine is going to kick in, and then you're going to hear a little bit of kind of rumble down the road. One area that's drastically different here on the hybrid has to be the gauge cluster. Now, you find the old traditional analog speedometer on the right, but on the left, no tachometer, but more or less a gauge that's going to kind of tell you what the engine's doing. Now, you have the charge, econo, and the power mode. And one thing I noticed as I stomped on the gas, of course, it shot up to the power. And when I was being a little more conservative, it fluctuated between the economy mode and the charge. Between the two gauges, you're going to find a digital readout of a lot of information. The forefront is really the digital speedometer that you can kind of watch as you're going down the road. Now, what's really great with this hybrid is you're going to want to watch your fuel economy. And one thing that didn't change had to be my distance to empty, really having a huge range with one tank of gas. But as you scroll through, you'll see other up-to-date information, really giving that average fuel economy that will fluctuate as you demand more power and less battery. Now, as you scroll down, you'll get other information that's really helpful to help really perfect the use of the hybrid engine on this vehicle. On the steering wheel, you're going to find controls for the stereo and that digital readout between the gauge we mentioned earlier. Now, if you're looking for cruise control, it took me kind of a minute, and specifically in a dark cabin at night, it's going to be kind of hard to find it because it's tucked down low. Now, that will take a little bit getting used to if you're accustomed to the controls being on the steering wheel, because this is more of a lever behind the steering. Now, in the center of the dash, you're going to find the good touchscreen system that a lot of vehicles are going with minimal buttons to the left. Now, I like the fact it has an oversized knob for volume and decent tune select to the right, and pretty much navigate it with touchscreen. Now, if you hit the good old apps button, what we found was some good other usage like the weather, traffic info, and a lot of innovation built into this system. Now, as you scroll down, you're going to find dual climate controls, and again, the digital readout that we prefer, either sync them up or you can separate them out so the driver and co-pilot can heat down or cool up separately. Now, it did have nice, simple operation once again, minimizing the knobs here on the left with buttons in between. Now, below that, you're going to find a decent deep storage compartment. It really can house anything you throw in there, and that's where you're going to have connectivity with your devices right there with all the hookups. Now, the hybrid comes equipped with the automatic transmission, which has the old standard drive mode, but it also has a B kind of label over here. You shift it down. Now, that's not for the paddle shifters or really manual shifting on the mode, but really engages that engine braking system. Now, there's the EV mode and econo mode buttons right here in between, and those are used really at lower speeds. The EV mode, really 25 miles or lower, really just using that battery power. Now, between the front seats, you will have dual cup holders and kind of a little niche right here. Now, it's for a phone, but I've got the 6 Plus, really didn't fit in there, so maybe just kind of find a good spot and leave it. Now, last but not least is the arm positioning, and I like the fact that you can actually slide this forward and back, giving you just a little bit more support should you need it. Now, inside the compartment, you're not going to find any connectivity there, no USB connections, but you will find a power outlet. Anytime you see spaces like this, that means you're kind of missing a couple of options. Now, in this case, it did come with the traction control, but to the left was blind spot awareness, to the right was the lane departure system, and furthermore was the collision alert system. Now, none of that came standard on this vehicle, but is optional equipment should you want to look for it. Now, one thing you're going to notice about the Camry is it had decent interior comfort. Now, the seats weren't leather, they weren't really enveloping, but they're pretty much straightforward, and that's what I expect on the Camry, because after all, this isn't a $60,000 vehicle, but pretty much a straight shooter with a decent engine under the hood. Now, that does it for this edition of Road Warrior and our test drive behind the wheel of the 2015 Toyota Camry Hybrid Edition. Now, don't forget, this had great fuel economy on the hood, around about 40 miles per gallon, and came with decent get up and go with a net horsepower around about 200. Now, overall, the Camry design has held true to its roots, really keeping a modest design, modest silhouette, with again some enhancements on the front end with that grille warfare. Now, what they haven't forgotten, of course, is its true roots in the mid-size market, giving you decent room on the inside, and again combining great innovation in there as well. Now, as always, we'd like to thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.